I think life is a journey. You come to this world is to enjoy the life, to be happy and healthy. So the day when you leave the world and you say, I'm happy in my life, I'm healthy in this life, because if you're not healthy, you will never be happy. So I believe happy and healthy are the things the human being always looking for. And I think next to 30 years, because of the technology, the life science is going to change a lot. And people is going to live longer. But you can live longer does not necessarily live healthier. So if you're not healthy, how can you be happy? If you live longer, if you're not happy, why you live there?
If you are suffering from any chronic disease, you must see the doctors and switch to hydrogen-rich water. You should drink 3,000 cc's of hydrogen-rich water each day for 6 months. Meanwhile, you should check your physical examination reports each month. You'll see the difference 6 months later. The examination result speaks for itself. Medicines alleviate your symptoms temporarily. Negative ions strengthen your self-healing power and immunity systems and safeguard your health permanently. Negative ion, a gift from nature. According to scientific research reports, everybody can live a long life, 120 years or longer. In reality, however, few people have lived longer than 100 years.
They claim it's the water. Tens of thousands of people who suffer from illness or disease travel to famous springs around the world to drink and bathe in healing waters they believe have special powers. Studies of these waters have revealed a specific common trait: high hydrogen content, possibly the key to the healing powers. A Nobel Prize-winning biochemist once commented that hydrogen, not oxygen, is the fuel of life. In Japan, these intriguing healing water studies fueled a research boom focusing on hydrogen. Today, the country leads the world in the studies on hydrogenated water. One of the key researchers involved is Dr. Katsuhisa Sakano.
Excessive free radicals in the body oxidize DNA and proteins, leading to a domino effect that can trigger aging and disease. Stopping the oxidation process at an early stage is crucial for maintaining health. It is known that hydrogen has oxidative reduction properties. We conducted a clinical test using hydrogen-rich Izumyo. After drinking Izumyo for 4 weeks, the data showed that the level of lipid peroxide in the blood was reduced, and the level of moisture and firmness in the skin of more than 50% of the participants improved. This is evidence that Izumyo's antioxidative effects remove free radicals and slows the aging process.
Vital steps to producing hydrogen-rich water include a cutting-edge membrane dissolution process for dissolving hydrogen into water, and a patented 4-layer aluminum package that locks the hydrogen inside. Start each day with a pack of Izumyo, the best-selling hydrogenated water in Japan. Izumyo. Live life right, the naturally plus way.
Studies of the Japanese professor at the University of Hatan Nagaoka showed that by drinking 1.5 to 2 liters of hydrogen water a day has same antioxidant effect as the consumption of 756 bananas, 516 apples, or 38 carrots. Research is based with only 550 parts per billion hydrogen content. In addition to antioxidant properties, molecular hydrogen also has anti-inflammatory, anti-apoptotic, and cytoprotective properties. Drinking hydrogen water is excellent for detoxification due to the high hydrogen permeability and solubility. It helps dissolve and flush out acid, solid waste, and toxins accumulated in the body.
Hi, I'm Tyler LeBaron of Molecular Hydrogen Institute. I have a degree in biochemistry and currently teach physiology at the university. I have been researching the therapeutic effects of hydrogen gas since early 2009 and even spent time doing research on hydrogen in Japan at Nagoya University. Why am I so passionate about hydrogen gas? If you are interested in health, wellness, longevity, natural remedies, exercise performance, then you have every reason to be as passionate about hydrogen as I am. The rates of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, and many neurological disorders are alarmingly high. The biomedical research on hydrogen gas appears to have marked therapeutic potential. There are a number of well-controlled human studies and over 300 peer-reviewed scientific articles on the benefits of hydrogen, some being published in the most prestigious journals like Nature and Science. Now that the positive effects of hydrogen have been confirmed in about 80 different human disease models, scientists are feeling very excited about its impact on disease treatment and prevention. There are 3 simple reasons why hydrogen is helpful. Number 1, molecular hydrogen can convert toxic oxygen radicals to water. It is the smallest molecule, smaller than oxygen, and can easily and quickly enter the cells and mitochondria better than any other antioxidant. Number 2, hydrogen also triggers an increase in our body's own antioxidant system, like glutathione and various other cytoprotective enzymes. Number 3, hydrogen exerts a beneficial effect on cell signaling, cell metabolism, and gene expression, giving it anti-inflammatory, anti-allergy, and anti-obesity effects. The interest in hydrogen research and hydrogen technology for health and wellness is growing exponentially. We invite you to be part of this hydrogen movement and subscribe to and share this website, molecularhydrogeninstitute.com, with people you know. The MHI website is dedicated to facilitating the accurate dissemination of hydrogen science and hydrogen technologies to the world. It discusses many important aspects of the hydrogen molecule and cuts through an enormous amount of pseudoscience and marketing hype that all too easily misleads the masses. You will notice that all the articles are highly referenced to the primary literature and not just one man's opinion. So please, join us in this hydrogen movement by signing up for free newsletter updates about the latest scientific advances in hydrogen research and technologies.
Wow. So this type of technology and therapy, it's affordable, it's effective, and it's something that every person can benefit. Can a young person use it as well as a senior? What is the category of use?
Yeah, no, excellent question. But because we're seeing that hydrogen does have such a high safety profile, in fact, every time we eat our non-digestible carbohydrates and our fibers, right, our intestinal bacteria is producing this hydrogen gas. So we always have basal levels of hydrogen gas in our blood and in our breath all the time, and so the safety profile is very high. So, and again, going back to the study from Sedgwick University, I mean, they're also using the newborns, for example. I mean, a lot of these done in infants or in neonates, or still in the babies in the womb, if you will, right?
Right.
And showing great benefits both to the mother and to the child. So it appears the safety and the therapeutic potential is very high. So this is why, for me, I'm personally very excited and passionate about this area, because it's not common that you come across some supplement or some idea or some method that is not only very effective but also very safe. The only thing in my mind that comes close to this is the best medical prescription of exercise.
National Aeronautics and Space Administration, in their Technical Note Report E9105 from May 1977, NASA says adding hydrogen to gasoline significantly increased flying speed and allows for a leaner air-fuel ratio. All emissions level decrease at these linear conditions. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration is a primary user of hydrogen as an energy fuel. It has used hydrogen for years in the space program. Liquid hydrogen fuel lifts the space shuttle into orbit. Hydrogen batteries, called fuel cells, power the shuttle's electrical systems. The only byproduct is pure water, which the crew uses as a drinking water. Hydrogen water therapy, NASA, radiation, spaceflight, DNA damage. The matter that exists in space is full of cosmic dust and radiation. These cosmic rays are high-energy thermonuclear protons and electrons that not only fill intergalactic space but also regularly collide with the Earth's atmosphere. When they do, the impact is released as not just heat that warms our atmosphere, but radiation as well. By the way, this atmospheric heating is not to be confused with warming of the Earth's atmosphere via the greenhouse effect. Our Sun is a heliosphere capable of shielding us from the most of the damaging effect of interstellar radiation. Unfortunately, and we don't know why, this heliosphere is shrinking and NASA has begun warning us that the Sun's ability to protect us has been reduced by 25% in just last 10 years. To be sure, we live in a radioactive world and galactic radiation is not only dangerous to astronauts but to the rest of us back here on Earth. 2010 National Aeronautics and Space Administration investigating intergalactic radiation determined that radioactive contamination exposure in space is inducing DNA and fat damage to human cells. What NASA researchers have found is that hydrogen water therapy delivered orally was a powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant capable of mitigating the DNA threat encountered by the astronauts. The technology branch of NASA in Huntsville, Alabama advocated hydrogen dosing by water or direct gas as a countermeasure strategy against radiation-induced DNA damage.
It's been called the most important car since the invention of the car. A typical family saloon, but with one important difference. The Honda FCX Clarity runs on hydrogen instead of petrol, so its only emission is water. Pure, fresh H2O that is actually drinkable. So we created H2O. The first water brand created by a car company. H2O symbolizes just how clean running the FCX Clarity is. So clean, you could drink what comes out of its exhaust. We launched H2O at cinemas nationally, where Honda's Hands commercial featuring the FCX was playing. Placed in the drink holders of cinema seats, what looked like simply a free bottle of water was actually a physical demonstration of the benefit of hydrogen fuel. Future distribution of H2O could include the fridges of service stations and Honda dealerships, where we can target drivers directly to further the conversation about hydrogen fuel. Honda H2O. Now isn't that refreshing?
Hello friends, this is Toyota Mirai, the car with fuel cell elements. In Japanese, Mirai means future. It looks like Toyota Mirai is the future of motoring. This car runs on hydrogen and its only emissions are water. The water is so nice and we can drink. Yes. It's like plastic, you know? It's nice. It tastes like still water. Tom, what about sparkling one?
Be talking today about cancer, molecular hydrogen, otherwise also known as active hydrogen, and we're going to talk about how hydrogen affects both cancer and then also chemotherapy. So I've got some interesting footage here that I think everybody might enjoy. This is footage from Japan, and what you're looking at here is some cells. The green represents live cells, and they're being exposed to chemotherapy, and all the red is cellular death. So you can see the chemotherapy is like dropping a nuclear bomb on these cells of yours, and it just kills just about everything. Then you have the same thing happening here, except this time they are giving chemotherapy, but they're also giving hydrogen. And this hydrogen is protecting the cells, and you can still see some cell death rate here, but it's very minimal. The differences are quite dramatic. You see the Japanese scientists explaining the differences here between the both petri dishes basically, and the effects that chemotherapy has on these cells with and without hydrogen. Hydrogen appears to actually protect yourselves from radiation. So let's say that you may be thinking, well, I'm not exposed to radiation. Well, we all are. In fact, NASA is using this technology for their astronauts. And they're doing that because astronauts are exposed to so much radiation in just a 24-hour period, which is actually the same amount of radiation that we get here on Earth in 6 months. So they're getting so much, bombardment of radiation. Obviously, it's really bad for them. And NASA is now using molecular hydrogen to protect their astronauts. So that was quite fascinating. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you're using proper levels of hydrogen, because there is something called therapeutic grade hydrogen, which is usually 0.8, 1.0 to about 1.6 ppm, particles per million. So that's the right levels probably to have. Now, another interesting thing about the effects that hydrogen has on cancer, here's some of the other research that I've read, is that the hydrogen will actually go into the body, and it's completely selective. So it actually goes to, so you have these mitochondria, really tiny cells, and they have the DNA code inside of them. Now, if you have mutated DNA, that's what cancer is. It's a mutation. And then those cells are always replicating, and that's how cancer is spreading. Now, when hydrogen goes into your body, what it actually does is it targets cells with unhealthy DNA, also known as, mutated DNA. And what it does for over 90% of the cancers is it doesn't allow the cells to replicate anymore. Now, what happens to a cell that doesn't replicate? Well, eventually with time it will die. So that was quite fascinating. It's not like hydrogen is just going to go in your body and start killing cancer. That's not what it does, but it doesn't allow it to replicate. And so that means that in the long term, there should obviously be really good effects on, the cancer. Basically, it would be dying off little by little instead of spreading. So I thought this was good information to share. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time on our next episode.
Lakote water and the name of Lakote have spread all over the world. It was not long ago when thousands of people a day began rushing to Lakote to get the water. More than 8 million people have visited the village since then, and many of them have experienced a miracle. Drinking the well water of Lakote relieves the symptoms of low back pain, diabetes, allergy, asthma, atopy, and hepatitis B. It is said that the water has also effects on incurable diseases like AIDS and cancer. Magic Johnson, the former NBA player who was infected with the HIV virus, has also been to Lakote to get the water. Just drinking the Lakote water cures many diseases. Is it miracle water? How can active hydrogen cure diseases? Here are Dr. Shirahata's hypotheses. 1. Its effect on allergy. Immunocompetent cells protect us from infectious diseases by attacking viruses or foreign matter by releasing active oxygen. But they sometimes unnecessarily attack foreign matter, such as pollen, and release too much active oxygen, which hurts normal cells. This is the cause of allergy. However, if there is a sufficient amount of active hydrogen in the body, it quenches active oxygen to ease allergy. Number 2, effect on diabetes. Diabetes is a metabolic disorder of glucose caused by an insufficiency of insulin production by the pancreas, or of insulin activity, or a defect of the glucose receptor. Removal of active oxygen by active hydrogen eases diabetes because the insulin-producing cells and glucose receptors are sensitive to active oxygen. Number 3, effect on hypertension. Unsaturated fatty acids of lipids react with active oxygen to form sludgy peroxolipids, which stick to the walls of the blood vessels to cause arteriosclerosis. As a result, the blood flow gets stagnant and blood pressure gets higher. Active hydrogen, by scavenging active oxygen, prevents unsaturated fatty acids from reacting with active oxygen. 4 is its effect on viral infection. When viruses get into the body, immunocompetent cells attack the viruses with active oxygen and protect us. But if the number of viruses is too great, immunocompetent cells keep releasing active oxygen and finally kill themselves. Then the number of viruses further increases to cause infection. Active hydrogen reacts with excess active oxygen and protects immunocompetent cells from suicidal reaction. As a result, it eases infectious diseases. According to Dr. Paolo Carloni of Italy, it is possible that active hydrogen is efficacious against AIDS virus. After getting into human cells, the AIDS virus releases protease, an enzyme that is essential to its propagation. Active hydrogen has a tendency to react with protease and prevent the virus from multiplying. Therefore, the number of AIDS viruses decreases, and the symptoms of AIDS takes a favorable turn. Number 5, its effect on cancer. The telomere, a special DNA sequence seen at the end of the DNA chain, gets shorter after every cell division. When the telomere is completely lost, no more cell division occurs and the cell dies in due time. However, telomerase of cancer cells repairs the telomere, and the cell division of cancer cells continues forever. According to Professor Shirahata, active hydrogen blocks the telomerase interaction and makes the lifetime of cancer cells limited. As mentioned, active hydrogen contained in the Lakota water is thought to be effective against a wide variety of diseases. In the final analysis, therefore, the story of Lakota water is the story of active.
I'm on a mission to have people not make the mistake that I did, thinking that you are somehow biologically immune to this, that just because you think you're smart or you know someone that you're not going to, or you think you eat healthy and you're not exposed to toxins, that your biology can somehow not be impacted by this. And I want to tell you that is a delusion, an absolute delusion. You are damaging yourself. There's no way around it unless you remediate with some of these strategies we're going to talk about. And you might be doing them and even not knowing it, because if you don't know the mechanism, you can't remediate. What is microwave radiation? I didn't expand on this. We'll go back to the mechanism. Your microwave oven, obviously, we talked about. Your cell phone, obviously. Your cell phone tower. Your Bluetooth headset. Any Bluetooth device. Any IoT, the Internet of Things. Your baby monitor.
Yeah,
your Wi-Fi router, probably the biggest and most pernicious thing. Yeah, this is going to be criminal. Yeah. They're going to look back at this as like we look at smoking now. Baby monitor, the most sensitive tissue, brains, they're exposing to this Wi-Fi. So you've got all this damage, and this damage, what will it do? It will cause single and double-stranded breaks in the DNA, in the mitochondria, in the nucleus. It decimates cell membranes and proteins. I mean, it's basically accelerating aging on steroids when you have EMF. In most cases, the microwave radiation exposure is more dangerous than X-rays.
Interesting.
More dangerous than X-rays.
Because of the oxidative stress it
Yes,
creates. Not
it's the
because of
oxidative
direct-
stress.
The important point for listeners is just to understand free radicals are not good or bad. Bad free radicals are bad, good free radicals are good. Just like bad fats are bad and good fats are good.
Well, it's not so much bad free radicals, it's you need a certain baseline, so it's excessive free radicals.
know
There's essentially industry conspiracy, and it really is a conspiracy. I mean, if you read the stories, it's just as bad as the drug industry, if not worse. That they're suppressing this information. It's the same damn. Any legitimate research that comes up is defunded and discredited.
That's a fair point. That is happening.
You know, I realized a long time ago that really the way we're going to get this is not by going to the government or trying to change the law. That's not going to work. It has to come from the public. Mm-hmm. Public has to demand this and refuse to, I guess, relinquish their power to these authorities and rely on their belief that that the only damage is thermal damage, and that is absolutely biologically untrue.
The lining of the gut's replaced every 3 days. The skin that you and I are sitting in today is only 6 weeks old. Your liver is 8 weeks old, your nervous system's 8 months old, etc. One of the things I began to realize then is that chronic disease only occurs when you lose the ability to make new cells at work.
Yeah, but if you've got functioning, really healthy mitochondria, it's this same strategies that really activate that process would actually activate cell health too.
You have an emotional event, it gets that distortion gets stored in the tooth in that circuit. That lowers the voltage to the pump that's inside the tooth that normally pumps fluid from the inside of the tooth into the mouth to keep it from getting decay. As you shut the pump down, eventually you start getting decay, then you get a filling, then you get a bigger filling, then you get a crown, then eventually you get a root canal, and then eventually you get cancer. Because what happens is that progressively over time, you get less and less voltage in that circuit. And as voltage begins to drop significantly below the 25 millivolts, then things don't run correctly. And if you don't have 50 millivolts, you can't repair it. So when it wears out, now you get chronic disease. You have to have the voltage, you have to have the nutrition, you have to deal with the toxins. And so you have to do all of those. Quit thinking in terms of biochemistry, start there thinking like an electrician. Do you have enough energy to make it work?
Part of your strategy is very similar to what I'm suggesting, is that we need to engage in activities that charge up our system, and one of them is exposing our skin, a sufficient quantity of surface area of our skin to the sunshine on a regular basis. You integrate a whole solid set of pragmatic recommendations with respect to diet and essential fatty acids and grounding and exercise. So it's the whole combination that is not conventional medicine, that is not what you've been told in the media that's going to fix your problem, which is some type of drug or surgery that can truly address the foundational cause of disease.
So let's take a look at some electronic terms. Here's the thing. pH stands for potential hydrogen, but is really, although it's about acid-base balance, it's really about voltage. The way you measure pH is you take a sophisticated voltmeter and you measure the voltage of a solution. Now there's something different about a solution than a copper wire. The copper wires that are bringing voltage into the building here are either turned on or off. So there are either electrons in those wires or not, correct? Turn the switch on, the electrons are there. You turn the switch off, they go away. But in a solution, like a glass of water, you have an option. That water can either be an electron donor or it can be an electron stealer. And so that's what's different about measuring voltage in a solution, is that it has the option of being one or the other. Well, by convention, if the solution happens to be an electron donor, we put a minus sign in front of the voltage. If it happens to be an electron stealer, we put a plus sign in front of the voltage. So when you measure the voltage of a solution, if it measures plus 400 millivolts, we convert that to a logarithmic scale from 0 to 14 and call plus 400 millivolts a pH of 0, and a minus 400 millivolts, with minus meaning electron donor, is the same thing as a pH of 14. So I found it's much easier to think about what's going on by thinking in terms of voltage rather than thinking in terms of pH, right? Well, what this tells us is this. Every cellular biology book will tell you that cells are designed to run at a pH of between 7.35 and 7.45. Well, what that means is that a pH of 7.35 is the same thing as minus 20 millivolts. And what does minus mean? Electron donor, right? Minus is electron donor, right? So cells are designed to run between minus 20 millivolts and 7.45 is minus 25 millivolts. Okay, so now we got something really important, don't we? And this is one of the things I want you to take away from this meeting. Every cell in your body is designed to run between minus 20 and minus 25 millivolts. Just like your refrigerator is designed to run at 110 volts, your car is designed to run at 12 volts, your cells are designed to run at between minus 20 and minus 25 millivolts. Got it? Okay, now we're cooking. Now, let's take a look at the difference between electron stealers and electron donors. An electron stealer causes damage. It's a pH between 0 and 6.9, and we call it acidic. So when you read books that say disease is always caused by the body being acidic, it's the same thing as saying the disease is caused when the body loses its voltage. You see that? Because the word acidic is the same thing as being over in the electron stealer category. A free radical, we read about illnesses caused by free radicals. Well, free radical is simply an electron that's a mugger. It's a molecule that's a mugger. He's out looking for somebody's purse to steal, right? He's out looking for somebody's electrons to steal. So a free radical goes around stealing electrons from cell membranes and damaging them in the process. Now, electron stealers are the positive pole. They're destructive, and at the atomic level, they spin left. Now, electron donors, on the other hand, can do work. It's a pH of 7.1 to 14, and we call that alkaline. So when you read books like Alkalize or Die, we're saying if you don't have voltage, you're going to die. You see that? It's the same thing. It's a synonym. So acidic means that you're in electron stealer status. Alkaline means you're in electron donor status. And that's the important thing. Antioxidants. Antioxidants are molecules that are very charitable. They're looking for somebody to give their money away to, namely their electrons. So when your mother says to you, eat your vegetables, they're good for you, she's saying, eat your vegetables, they have voltage in them and you need that. You see that? They're the negative pole, they're constructive, and they
Dr. Lorraine Day did something most people have not had the courage to do. When diagnosed with cancer, she decided to heal herself without the aid of the medical community. What makes this story particularly interesting is that she herself is a highly respected orthopedic surgeon. Instead, after 30 years as an agnostic, she turned to belief in an ancient recipe for health from the Old Testament after she learned that the cancer had spread.
For 2 years, I was getting worse and worse and worse, and people say, well, how did you follow your progress? Well, I followed my progress by getting worse and worse and worse. But I still would not go to the conventional doctors because I had seen too many thousands of patients die from the treatment we give them. Chemotherapy is poison. It causes cancer. Every doctor knows that. Radiation, doctors will tell you don't get too many x-rays. X-rays cause cancer. But when you have cancer, then they say, we have to give you huge doses of what we told you to avoid because it causes cancer. Well, it's because doctors don't know how to treat cancer. We're never taught because the pharmaceutical industries control much of what is taught in medical school because they give the majority of funding for research and they only teach surgery and drugs.
Doctor, can we talk about cancer a little bit? Various types out there. What are some of the things that you've seen in terms of your patients and what some of the things that you've been able to do?
A better thing to talk about in relationship to, well, I will talk about that, right? A better thing to talk about, however, is the relationship between profits and cancer in the United States. There was a study that was published, I believe it was in 1994. It was a 12-year program, 12-year study. They looked at adults who had developed cancer as an adult, not childhood cancer, but adult cancer, right? And this is the main types of cancer that we get here in the United States. They did a meta-analysis of these people all around the world who developed cancer as adults for 12 years and were treated with chemo. And they looked at the results. And they published the results in the Journal of Clinical Oncology. And the results? 97% of the time, chemotherapy does not work. 97% of the time it doesn't work. So why is it still used? It's one reason and one reason only: money. If you go to a medical doctor, an MD, with a sinus infection and that doctor prescribes an antibiotic, he gets no financial kickback. Now, if he prescribes 5,000, of that antibiotic in 1 month, the drug company that makes it might send him to Cancun for a conference, right? Mm-hmm. But he gets no direct remuneration. It's not with chemotherapeutic drugs, it's different. Chemotherapeutic drugs are the only classification of drugs that the prescribing doctor gets a direct cut of. So if your doctor prescribes chemotherapy for you, here's how it goes, more or less. The doctor buys it from the pharmaceutical company for $5,000, sells it to the patient for $12,000, insurance pays $9,000, and the doctor pockets the $4,000 difference. And there ought to be a law. The only reason chemotherapy is used is because doctors make money from it. Period. It doesn't work 97% of the time. If Ford Motor Company made an automobile that exploded 97% of the time, would they still be in business? No. This is the tip of the iceberg of the control that the pharmaceutical industry has on us. Most people have no idea of this at all. Now, I wrote a book. It's called The MD Emperor Has No Clothes, right? In my book, I have a bulleted list of 10 questions that every cancer patient should ask their doctor. 10 questions. I've had patients kicked out, literally, kicked out of the oncologist's office because the doctor was PO'd that the patient was asking him these questions. And these are just common sense questions. Cancer treatment in the United States, we have lost the war on cancer. We have lost the war on cancer. Why? Because cancer is not a reductionistic phenomenon. Cancer is a holistic phenomenon. And when you try to bring a reductionistic methodology like drugs and surgery to bear on a holistic phenomenon, you will completely miss the boat each and every time. You cannot do it. Medical doctors are like colorblind art critics. They can see that that's a boat. They can see the black and white outline, but they're completely blind to all of the colors and textures that make up the substance of the thing. It's no difference with cancer. The reason that people get cancer in the United States and the reason that we have completely lousy outcomes is because medical doctors are driving the research bus. When women get together and do a 5K run for breast cancer, all of that money, do you think any of that money goes to nutritional research? Do you think any of that money goes to homeopathic research or acupuncture or traditional Chinese medicine or naturopathic research? No. All of it goes to drugs and surgery, which do not work. Now, why aren't those women running for selenium? If every girl in this country took 200 micrograms of selenium, in one generation we'd eliminate breast cancer by 82%. That's a big number. Why aren't we doing that? Because medicine in the United States is a for-profit industry, and most people are completely unaware of this, and most people bow down to the altar of MD-directed high-tech medicine at their own demise.
The treatment doctors use for cancer has actually helped it spread. That's the finding in a brand new study which suggests chemotherapy can help the cancer cells become resistant to treatment. Chemotherapy targets cancer cells, killing them, but according to the article published in Nature Medicine, it also can damage the DNA in healthy cells. That causes them to release a protein, according to this study, and researchers say that can actually help the protein help protect the cancer cells, causing tumors to grow. The study helps explain why some people appear to develop a resistance to chemo. Scientists say it could also lead to better treatments in the future. Let's bring in Dr. Arthur Kaplan. He heads the Division of Medical Ethics at New York University's Langone Medical Center. Chemo helping cancer spread. This goes against everything anyone's ever heard.
It does, but you know, it's not totally a surprise yet, because we know that cancers rebound after an initial blast of chemo. And as you just said, this starts to explain why. Something is getting released out of the dying cancer cell that basically is in the normal cells, and it's helping more cancer cells grow. So chemo's complicated. If you will, you take that big shotgun, shoot it at a cancer cell, you're causing a lot of havoc.
Chemo used to be given in larger doses than it is now, generally speaking, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we used to be uncertain. The idea was you're going to blast this whole thing all at once with everything you've got, and that turned out to be worse for the patient. As everyone knows, it's a race between the poison, which is chemo, and you trying to live long enough to benefit from the result. It's crazy, but that's sort of the tool we have.
Now, I'd like to show you an amazing video clip. It was broadcasted by Japanese national TV news in Japan. All the talks were all in Japanese and there's no English subtitles. But I'd like you to pay attention to eye-opening two scenes. The first scene is showing two kinds of Petri dish samples. Please pay attention to the color change. Green color shows the cell is alive and the red color means the cells are dead. There are two kinds of Petri dishes. Both of them have healthy living cell initially, but they infuse free radical afterwards. The difference between the two samples is one has infused molecular hydrogen before infusing free radical. You see the obvious difference of the color? The one with molecular hydrogen infused stay mostly alive and stay green, which is on the right-hand side. But the other one without molecular hydrogen all dead and become red, which is on the left-hand side. Now, this researcher is trying to develop the more clinical application of the hydrogen water use. Another thing I'd like you to pay attention is that there are two groups of small animals, mice. Both groups of mice received chemotherapy. One group was given hydrogen water and the other group was given regular water, it will show you very clear difference. The one given hydrogen water were very lively even after the chemotherapy, and standing and pooping a lot, which is on the left-hand side. Right-hand side is the regular water group, but both of them received chemotherapy. So this is the ones drinking hydrogen water, standing, lively, and pooping a lot. So this is the side which is just drinking a regular water after the chemotherapy. Their body becomes stiffened on the right-hand side.